finally read Cyberfrog Dark Harvest that came out recently. And this, it's kind of confusing. I don't really have a good handle analytically yet on the whole structure of the Cyberfrog epic story, once it finally comes out and all the parts are out, because it's, on the one hand, it's a four-parter, right? You've got, what was the first one called? I've got them here. So you got Blood Honey, which was the first one. Then Wrecked Planet was the second one. And Red Extermination, I think, is coming out next. And then there's a fourth part. But in addition to all of that, you've got a lot of this material that comes in between the stories, or flesh it out, or prequels. I mean, there's Salamandroid Death Sting, Unforgettable Tales 1 and 2. I think this was just more kind of material like old stories or whatever. So there's a lot of that because it was a comic run back in the day, obviously, before he's doing what he did now with it. Amphibionics, I've got some of those as well. But you got Death Sting, you've got, I got deleted scenes, you've got the Cyberfrog Heartsick Terror, or Heartsick Horror, excuse me. And so there's a lot of, I think there's a Death Sting 2 as well that I don't have. I don't know if that's coming out. Did I miss that, or is that coming out with Red Extermination? I forget. So it's easy to kind of lose track of a lot of these. And when Dark Harvest came out, I was telling Sound Engraver, I was like, well, I feel like ideally I'd love to reread everything again from Blood Honey on. But that was just too much. I didn't have time for that right now. And I wanted to talk about Dark Harvest while it was still out, and still a thing. So I did reread Wrecked Planet. Should have reread Heartsick Horror too, but there's no Death Sting number 2 yet. Sound Engraver says, okay, yeah, that's coming out though. I think it was part of one of the add-ons or whatever that I got with Red Extermination, if I'm not mistaken. But it seems like somewhere I saw a part 2 of that. I don't know. Anyway, I'll need to wait until the whole story is completed before I can really speak on the structure of it, But there's a lot to the story. There's a lot to the world. And I read Dark Harvest. I had to reread Wrecked Planet for it. So all that to say, I don't know if I'm going to give the most comprehensive analysis of it tonight. I just want to talk about some of the story and what the story meant to me and whatnot. And I might spoil a little bit here if you're someone who's, hasn't read it yet, you want to or whatever. I'm not going to go through blow by blow on the whole story, but basically, Dark Harvest mostly tells what's been going on with Lily. Because if you notice, or if you remember at the end of Wrecked Planet, once they just totally demolish poor Trick Ron, poor Cyberfrog, the Vespas take off with Lily. So what's been going on with her? We know that what's her name? Dystopia had been messing with Lily's mind, at the behest of the leader of their community and whatnot. We find out in this story that Dystopia is also working with Scorpion, which is a big deal because Scorpion's got some plans of his own. He gave Trickron the ability to speak the Vespa's language, but this art is just so freaking amazing. I mean, I'm no artist, but one of the things I love about the art is just it's a work of art in every panel. It really is. And I so appreciate that, not as somebody who's, an expert on art or an expert on the, terminology and all of that, but as somebody who reads a lot of comics and understands the materiality of comic book storytelling and what it should be. It truly should be the art and the text telling the story together. And I just reread, for example, the 3 large omnibuses of Knights of the Old Republic comics that I talked about previously, John Jackson Miller. And he worked with a different variety of artists, and some of them were great. He started out working with some great artists, but then he got into working with artists who were just really minimalistic, or sort of almost like abstract expressionism when they're trying to show these characters. And it just got ugly. It got some of the characters truly were just vile to look at. And these are characters who aren't supposed to look that way, So I do appreciate how the art is just truly a masterpiece. I could take any of these panels and frame it, it really is so detailed. And I love that because it enhances the importance of the art and the text telling the story. I think that's important. So you get more of Lily's story here and what's happening with her as the Vespas are taking her away. You do get a little bit more in part 2 of what's been going on with Cyberfrog, and I'll talk about that in a second. We don't really get too much. We don't go too far into Cyberfrog's narrative from where we left him at the end of Wrecked Planet. But you deal with Lily and her psychology, what dystopia has been doing to her, and where the Vespas are taking her off to a little bit. It's a very, just a very short little bit of connective tissue between part 2 and part 3. And what I love about it is that it does enhance the father theme here, the missing father theme. One of the first things that stuck out to me with Cyberfrog was how it was basically the setup of Superman. I talked about this in my review of Bloodhoney back in the day. It's the setup of Superman, Jor-El, the Heavenly Father, sending forth his son to help mankind. This was sort of reverse on that because Jel-Shen is the Heavenly Mother, come to Earth and submerging into the swamp, sort of the primal ooze, to help our mankind's future. And her son, birthed as Trickron, is Cyberfrog, here to serve mankind. So I love that aspect of it. But then there's also, like I said, anytime you tell a story that emphasizes the importance of motherhood, you can't help but to emphasize the need or the importance of fatherhood as well. And we see that in Heather Swain. I mean, Heather Swain is her father, I think, if I remember correctly, left to the Gulf War, and she's had all these horrible people that her mother brought into her life, horrible father figures, abused her and whatnot. There's the Heartsick horror story, about the fear and the pain and the hopelessness, and she's dealing with, well, I'll get to that in a second. So fatherhood's a big deal. Now, when she, in the future here, or in the present, the future of the story there, has Lily's own father goes off and leaves her. And we don't really know exactly, I think we'll get more of the story, exactly what was going on there. He left, as part of the survival team to go find, resources or whatever, but never came back. So you got this little girl, Lily, abandoned by her father, for all intents and purposes, whatever his intentions were, whatever actually happened to him to keep him away or not, whatever, abandoned by her father, much the same way Heather Swain felt abandoned by her own. And there's that missing fatherhood, a father place in there. And that's what Trickron is so important. That's why Cyberfrog's so important. I'll talk about that here in a second. But we do get that that part of the story, which I think is really great. I can't deny being a little ticked off just at this, okay? Just because for over a couple of years now, I've been having to sit with poor Cyberfrog, his place in the story, having his tongue cut out, a freaking stinger shoved through his skull, Vespa's venom running all through his body. I mean, at the end of Wrecked Planet, you get the gut-wrenching, emotional, horrific Pieta scene. I mean, it's almost over for Trickron. This is his symbolic death and rebirth, in terms of the hero's journey. Even though he kind of already had that, with going into the future, as his hibernating or whatever, or regenerating in the water. But, in terms of the story and the journey he's on now, this is the end of that act. This is sort of the symbolic death, and we're hoping, we're looking for some sort of rebirth, metaphorical rebirth. I mean, and that was hard to watch. That was hard to read. It was hard to go through. And I'm like, man, I was hoping Dark Harvest would give me just a little bit more. Like, let me know he's going to be okay. And it does, in the sense that, again, spoiling things, but we know that Salamandroid pops in, and we know that Jel-Shen is still alive. I think that's in some of the teasing pages for Dark Harvest, or for Red Extermination. I don't know. But anyway, so we know that hope is it's coming there. But I'm just like, man, I really need the rest of the story, man. I really need it. And I'm not saying that at all to play into the whole, you should get his books out faster. I don't buy into that. I understand the freaking masterpiece that the artwork is, and I can't begin to fathom how long that would take. So I'm not jumping on that bandwagon or anything. I guess all I'm doing is saying it just to emphasize how much I truly have come to really care about this character. And this is probably the biggest compliment I can say to any writer for their character, for their work. If I stumbled across Cyberfrog stories, if I didn't have a clue who Ethan Van Sciver was, if I didn't know about YouTube or anything like that, I just stumbled across these stories, I would become incredibly invested still in the character of Cyberfrog. He's a character that's come to mean a lot to me over the past few years. He's an aspirational trickster, which we don't have enough of. his character, it's kind of like a Superman or a He-Man or somebody like that really just makes the decision to stand and fight and to protect. And that's what true masculinity and true fatherhood's all about. And in the story, of course, Trick Ron, I was talking a little bit about Lily. He he's a hero, right? He's a warrior. He, in the sense that he's built to go fight and protect. That's how he protects people, by fighting these Vespas. And he decides to stay in this little community with Heather Swain so that he can protect her daughter, especially when Heather Swain has to go off and do her little kind of pillaging and finding, food or whatever mission. He's going to stay, and he talks about in some of the stories to just try and put a smile on this little girl's face who hasn't smiled in so long. And she even doesn't like him at first, but he wins her over, and he becomes this father figure to her. And that's a choice. Like we talked about the great quote from Magnificent Seven at the beginning of the stream. That's a choice that fathers make. It's a sacrifice. It's a weight of responsibility that they willingly and joyfully choose to carry because they care for other people and want to protect and give and serve other people. And that's what you see Cyberfrog. That's what you see in his character. And that means so much to me. I also love the character because of what he's done for Heather Swain. I think this is really a metaphor for what heroes do for us in general. In the story, if you read them, you know that when he meets Heather Swain, and they reflect on this a little bit in Dark Harvest as well, she was ready to give up, right? She was trying to commit suicide. And he sees her jump, and he saves her, and he gives her hope again. He gives her joy again. And it's obviously it's not a romantic thing or anything like that. He's a hero that helps her see that life can still be worth living, helps her see that life is, and there are things in life still worth fighting for. That's what real heroes do for us. That's an image or a metaphor for what heroes do for us in the real world all the time. Now, I don't know. I'm sure there are cases out there of people, maybe getting to the point of being suicidal or something like that. I've never been to that place, but I've been to the place many times in my life where you just kind of give up. You can just sort of give up in life, or want to give up in life without actually wanting to end your life. People do that all the time. People, we see people walking around like zombies in life all the time, just joyless or whatever. And that can be because things go on. It can be because you're just worn down or whatever. And anytime I've gotten to sort of a place like that in life, it's always been heroes or stories that help me see, because heroes are, these archetypes stand in for, real life things, and they stand in Superman, He-Man, Luke Skywalker. These characters show you that there's always a good out there, and it's always worth fighting for, even if it's hard. It's never questioned. It's never like, was it even worth fighting for? I don't even know. No, these aspirational heroes tell you always get up and always move forward. And they're the inspiration for the cathartic motivational heroes that we also love. But Cyberfrog is absolutely one of those characters. And I just love his character so much. And I can't really need to read Extermination because my psychology needs it. I can't leave him in this place anymore that he is, even though it's a great development in his story arc. I see the whole place even in the hero's journey of him, but I want to see this character come back and do what he does and shine forth that hope and kick some Vespa's butt as well. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just read it this week, and so much has been going on this week that I can't really give you an in-depth analysis of Dark Harvest, but it's a really great connective tissue. I think it's an important connective tissue. By the time we do get to read Red Extermination, you'll want to know some of the things that happened in here. But I don't know. On this Father's Day stream, I just wanted to talk about that. Cyberfrog has definitely become one of those heroes that's in my own little pantheon now of heroes like the other ones I mentioned, He-Man, Superman, and so forth, of aspirational heroes. And we don't have enough aspirational tricksters, Off the top of my head, Naruto is the only other one I could think of, because tricksters are usually tend to be more cathartic motivational. But aspirational tricksters are great, and they're great, and it's good to have one here. So anyway, that's the other review I want to give. I think